And today we're joined by the global CEO of Adobe here at their headquarters in India. Joining me today is Shantanu Narayen. Shantanu, thanks so much for joining us, and it's great to have you back here on CNBC-TV18 and in person.
It's always a pleasure to be on your show, Shireen. Thanks for having me.
Shantanu, let me start by asking you about your view of the world. It is an increasingly uncertain time, not just because of the geopolitical tensions that we're seeing, but inflation, the central bank action, and several pressure points that CEOs have their eye on. As you look at the world today, what are you most concerned about? What are you most confident about?
Well, I think first in my role, if I'm not optimistic, I'm in the wrong role. So overall, I just continue to be optimistic about what's happening. I think the world has gone through these phases. The first unprecedented phase of what happened with the pandemic was certainly, where people said, let's make sure we focus on health and safety of people. I think the war in Ukraine has certainly, been another one of these geopolitical shocks. But I think as it relates to Adobe, the irony is, whether you're not able to be somewhere in person, digital has become a more important part of everybody's strategy. So, I think in the long run, the consumer sentiment still seems to be fairly positive. And businesses, I think, are thinking about how they use digital to navigate whatever uncertain times they might have.
Speaking about the uncertain times that we live in, but the acceleration of digital, and this is an interesting number that I picked up from your earnings call for the last quarter, where you talk about the fact that consumers have spent $1 billion more online in May of this year compared to April, and year-to-date shoppers have spent over $377 billion online. That's a 9% growth year-on-year. So you believe that despite the uncertainties, despite the inflationary pressures, this is likely to continue, this trend line?
There's no question. The genie is not going back in the bottle in terms of how people engage with customers. And what you're referring to, Shireen, is the third business that we have, which is the digital experience business or the experience cloud. And we have this unprecedented view of what people are doing digitally because our business strategy there is enabling businesses to power their businesses digitally. And so the Adobe Digital Index report is an ability for us to aggregate what's happening. And, I think people were always looking at, is the growth accelerating?
Yeah.
But the reality is that more and more of this stuff is happening online. What they were buying changed. And, we have really good insight into what's happening with inflation. And certainly, I think people moved a little bit more towards groceries as well as more, things that they needed for their running of their houses. But I think the trend towards online is just, it's explosive and it's not going to change.
All right, so